beginning with the big 3 mile staying chases. Katie Young, who are you siding with in the King George?
I think the obvious standout horse is actually Allaho, but I think I'd be willing to take a punt on Shishkin at a bit of a price. I think if you take Allaho out of the race, I think you have to put him on the short list. Like, he is going to be short of a run going into this, and that is a little bit of a concern. But he does have winning form first time out, and he is 2 from 2 on his first 2 runs back at Kempton. I think he's 4 from 4 around Kempton, so his form can't get much better than that at this track. I think the track suits him down to the ground, and his jumping around Kempton is very, very good. I hope they take the cheap pieces off, because I think that could be a factor into why he didn't jump off that day. And if they do take them off, I think he could be in with the chance. Now, I know I was looking back through, I don't think any horse has won this race without a prep run. So he'd be one of the first ones to do this now. So he'd be setting records if he does. But look, he has the ability to win this if he's back to his best. Look, his form was a little bit hit and miss, but I think if they could iron him out, I think you'd have to put him bang there. We know how good Allaho is. He only really has to turn up and be at his best over the 3 mile trip. But look, I think if you're looking for a bit of value, Shishkin might just hold a bit, in my opinion.
I'm very interested to hear George's thoughts on this as well, because this has been a torture chamber for my mind for the last few days. I have literally gone from Allaho's going to win to he's too short. Maybe Bravemansgame. Maybe I'm wrong about this Gold Cup hard race nonsense. Maybe Bravemansgame, then switching to Shishkin. So, George, who do you like?
I think Allaho just wins, to be honest. Like, I was trying to find ways for him to beat Gerri Colombe, like when he still looked a likely runner. And sort of stumbled. I didn't stumble across something. I've always thought he improves massively first start to second start. But there are a few people who are sort of underwhelmed by his seasonal reappearance. As you've pointed out, it was the highest RPR he's ever recorded on a seasonal reappearance. But this is a horse that comes on for a run. And I went through from his first run to his second run since he's been in training. He's improved £29, £18, £20 and £10 on RPRs. That's quite a drastic improvement. That's got to be an average of around about £18, £19 from his first to his second start. So if he's produced a career best on his reappearance, that does sort of mean he could be primed for a frightening performance here. The thing people might worry about is off such a big break, like him bouncing on his return. But that was it was a long time ago. His first run back was it the 6th of November or something like that. He's not a candidate for the bounce factor as he's had enough time to recover.
It also wasn't a hard race.
No, exactly. There is that as well. I just thought it was interesting that some people were sort of crabbing his reappearance. You know, not only was it his best reappearance ever, he also improved massively first to second start.
George has come with the receipts.
Exactly.
I'll show you, X.
The drying ground sort of takes. I was half thinking Royale Pagaille might be capable of running into a place, but the drying ground sort of done for that. If there's one, it could be Hewick. He's not far off the standard required, and he has got form on proper good ground, whether it's summer good or winter good. He's sort of done it all. And he comes here fit. He's got the jockey at the moment on him in Gavin Sheehan. If you were backing someone to run into a second or a third at 6, I'm seeing 16s in front of me here. He could be the one to take a punt on each way, but I think Allaho just wins.
Yeah, since I did the interview with Shark Hanlon, the 33s is long gone, and he's now 16s for this. And
I still think he's value at that, to be honest.
Yeah, look, I haven't had a bet on the race yet, and I'll be straight up with everybody about that right now. I have yet to place a bet on this. And that's one of the reasons why my mind has been in a torture chamber. Because last week I was thinking, Allaho is a massive price at 7-2 if he runs. And now you're looking at 7-4. And that leaves a bit of a mark on you. You're frustrated at the fact you haven't taken that price and now the price is gone. But the last thing you want to do is then go against a horse that you like. I noticed there's been a big move for Bravemansgame. I presume this is in the absence of Gerri Colombe.
This ground is going to really suit him, is what I was just thinking. I always thought he was a good ground horse, and he's managed to win some big races on soft ground, but this is massively in his favour now if it keeps drying. We've got nothing but wind forecast here until Tuesday, I think. Until Tuesday. And I'm less than an hour from Kempton. Like, he will absolutely bounce off that ground. It's just how concerned you are about not the first defeat. The first defeat didn't concern me at all. It's the fact that he ran at all at Haydock does concern me.
Do you think? I know. I was just looking through this last week, and it kind of, it amazed me a little bit now, because we know he's had a wind up, and and Paul's obviously mentioned that his wind was affecting him. Why does he not put a tongue tie on him? Because to me now, in his last 2 races, he looks like he hasn't finished out his races off the back of the last. I don't know whether he doesn't, obviously you mustn't like tongue ties and mustn't put them on many horses, but to me, he looks like a horse that would improve for a tongue tie applied to him. That's just in my opinion now, but he looks like he's crying out for one. And at this point in the season, he's obviously not going to get another wind up. His wind's obviously affecting him if he's not quite finishing out his races. So I just thought it was a kind of just a point to bring up there, that why does he not like them? Does he not put them on his horses? Is that a reason, or is it just
I don't really know with Nichols and tongue ties, but it's a fair point, because we sort of said the last time we talked about him about that wind up might have worn off a little bit.
Yeah.
It's a very good point. If you look at where he's had his wind ups, that's when he's actually then been effective on soft ground. The rest won on soft ground and not long after his wind ups. So could explain his defeats the last twice. Could also be a reason to go, obviously you'd rather he had a tongue tie or something on. If it ends up good or good soft in places on the day, he might not feel his wind so much. He might finish his race off. One of them, which unfortunately probably mean they won't give him a wind up for another season.
Yeah.
Do you really want to give him a third wind up though, that quickly?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to work, but what's your other option? Keep him to good ground running in a winter sport. He'll be 9 in a few weeks. Like it's not like you've got nothing left to lose really.
It just, to me, it could just eke out that little bit of improvement that might be the making of him. Just by looking back through his form there last week, I just thought it was unusual to see a horse that has a wind issue not wear a tongue tie.
Can't remember the name of the man who owned him, and this is before both of your times, which now that I think of it is quite bloody depressing. But do either of you remember Ven Ottery running in the Champion Chase? No, gone over their heads. If you're over 40, you'll remember Ven Ottery. He was handed that horse from an amateur trainer who was a bit of a difficult character, if I remember correctly. But he desperately needed a tongue tie. And the old trainer, still owner of the horse, who gave him to Paul Nicholls, declared him for the Champion Chase without the tongue tie. And he ran a blinder in it. And Nicholls was convinced he would have at least been second had the tongue tie been on. So he has used them in the past, but for very specific reasons. Or very specific horses, I should say. Look, I've been struggling with Bravemansgame this week. I really have. I genuinely can't tell whether or not he's had the hard race in the Gold Cup and that's taken something off him and has just softened him up a little bit, or if he legitimately just got beaten because it was, according to Timeform, heavy ground and he's come back. The quotes from Paul Nicholls this week I thought were really interesting because it's now very, very clear he did not want to run in the Betfair Chase. It was the owner, Brian Drew, wanted to run him. And both the owner and Paul have said subsequently, he's done his best piece of work in the lead up to this. But Paul was also saying in the lead up to the Betfair Chase, there'll be no excuses. And to be fair, he didn't offer any, but still not ideal. This race is ideal for him, though. He stays, He's perfect for it. He's unbeaten at the track. He's won a Codestar Novice Chase and the King George. You've got Harry Cobden on your side as well. For Allaho, I'm fascinated by Allaho, George, and you might be right. Maybe he's just going to blitz this lot. And you could argue the fact that he's even turning up in the race is a tip in itself, and that Paul Townend is going over. If this horse ran in the King George and Paul didn't ride him, we'd all go mental. That would be that would be the equivalent of Harry Cobden not riding Bravemansgame in the Betfair Chase. It wouldn't make any sense. So he has to ride him, whether or not he wants to or not. And going back to his form from 2022, yeah, he'd probably blitz this field. But then again, he did beat a bunch of has-beens. Very talented has-beens, but has-beens all the same in the Punchestown Gold Cup. Clan de Sobo's last race, Album Photo's second last race. Fakir Duderi has done nothing for that form. The only horse you could point at from Punchestown that did anything was Kemboy, and that was a Grand National trial that he won last season. But one of the highest rated horses in training, ideally suited to Kempton. He's not going to be helped by Frodon and the Real Whacker, though. And how much of a problem, as a former jockey, George, how much of an issue for Paul Townend is that going to be? That Sam Tristan Davis is going to want to be on the lead, and so is Bryony Frost on Frodon.
I think on a horse like Allaho, it won't be an issue at all. Like he's tended to make the running just because there's nothing good enough to go the gallop he wants to go. If they want to go a good gallop in front, they'll only make his job easier, in my opinion. Like he'll be able to settle in, pop away, and he'll have something to aim at when he turns in. I think, if anything, they make his job easier.
So I still think there's a question mark over him. Like, very excited to see him in the race. Great that he's turning up for it. But I'm with Katie. The more I think about this, the more Shishkin just appeals. There's a lot of things that are not ideal. First of all, why did he need cheek pieces on his seasonal debut? Because clearly Nicky feels that he needs something to help wake him up, and Nico obviously felt the same. That's backfired spectacularly. He's missed 2 intended prep runs after that, one because of race cancellation, and the other because Nicky just decided, I'm not going to run him on heavy ground, which is fair enough. But it's Nicky Henderson. He's not going to want for fitness, and he's unbeaten at Kempton, including winning the Desert Orchid Chase at this very meeting. He's a weapon of a horse, and he's the only horse who now represents true value in the race. Like, if he jumps off, which he should really, he'll hardly do that again. Then you're getting 11-2 about a proper, genuine superstar Grade 1 horse, a horse who is second top rated by time form. Is he? Is that right? Yeah, second behind Allaho by time form, top rated on RPRs. He stays. He's unbeaten at the track. He'll love the ground, and you've got Nico de Boinville on your side. 11-2, Shishkin is just too big for me, so I'm with Katie.
I think as well. I think Allaho's only ran once over 3 mile. I know he did achieve a very good rating for that, but it might just be something to just make a note of as well. All his form pretty much has been over 2.5, 2.
But so Shishkin's.
Yeah, but he's ran over 3 mile a few more times than what Allaho has done. That would be my only.
Just once, isn't it?
No, I think he's ran. Did he not run twice over 3 mile?
No, it was it was beating. Yeah, beating. Why can't it? Ahoy, senor.
Yeah.
Finally, it came to me. But even Nicky himself is now saying, I really should have been running him over further. We're here now. And you should have, Nicky. You probably should have run him in the Gold Cup last year, if we're completely honest about it.
Allaho would have been running over 3 miles if Willie didn't have such a strong hand in the 3 mile division. Like with Album Photo and Galopin Des Champs, Allaho would have been running over 3 miles as well, wouldn't he?
Who's the better Ryanair Chase winner, Envoi Allen or Allaho?
Allaho.
Allaho, yeah.
Envoi Allen beat Janadil by 17 lengths. Allaho beat him by 14. And Envoi Allen had to beat Shishkin. I got him! I got him! Boom!
He's just a better horse, though. There's not a debate. Like, it's there in black and white. Allaho is a better horse than Envoi Allen.
He is. He is. I'm not denying that at all.
Allaho's also beaten Janadil by 2 lengths and 9 lengths. Like it's different days, different races, isn't it?
And to be fair, like, I am kind of playing here because Janadil is not a horse that you're hanging your hat on in terms of, he beat him by 17 lengths, and therefore, look, I think it's a fascinating renewal. Envoi Allen was brought over for this race last year, and I'm sure they brought him over full of confidence. It didn't work out. So just because Cheveley Parker, I kind of think that Allaho is only lining up here because the Cheveley Park team want him to. I don't think Willie Mullins really wants to run him. And it's entirely possible that the reason Willie Mullins wasn't talking about this is because he just wanted to see how did he come out of Clonmel. And not in the immediate aftermath, how did he come out of that race weeks later and understand how he's taking the race, how is he eating up at home, what's his work been like, and then go Kempton. But he wasn't talking about that race. Yet Dave Yates contacted the owner of Allaho and asked him, hey, right after he won at Clonmel, are you going to go for the King George? And he said yes. So why did Willie not mention it at any point? I don't think he really wanted to go. In fact, he was actively mentioning anything but the King George. He was saying, well, it's all about the Ryanair chase, and we'll probably go for the Kinloch Bray in between. He never said Kempton, and now he's rocking up as the 7-4 favorite. So if he goes and wins, he wins. I have to let him run at that price. Bravemansgame, I can't get out of my head the fact that he just doesn't look the same horse this season. Entirely possible he just didn't stay the 3 mile 2 at Haydock, and that's the reason he was beaten. Not that he's had a hard race in the Gold Cup and isn't the same horse. The 11-2 about Shishkin is just too big, so I'm following Katie Young in. But George is with Allaho. Katie and I are with Shishkin. Anything else you want to put in for the forecast? Hewick? Hewick's the most obvious one.
Yeah. Let's take Hewick.
I don't think he's been in that long, has he? That'd be my only concern. He probably doesn't take much time to get fit, but I feel like Shark was only saying like a month, 6 weeks ago that he was back in. Maybe it was a bit longer than that, but I just have in my head that he hasn't actually been back in training that long. That'd be my only concern. No, Hewick.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. That's a good point. But it does. This has been a long-term plan for the Shark.
And he probably doesn't take much to get fit. He's quite light framed.
He's quite small, isn't he? I think Shark Hanlon was saying the other day as well about how differently he's approaching this season with him. Like he's not going to go to every fight on the way from here to Cheltenham. He's being trained for this and the Gold Cup, which means he's not going to leave a bit on him, knowing that he's going to run 5-6 more times between now and the Gold Cup.
And he was
as he can be.
He was saying on the show with me, but also off air, that he shouldn't have run him in Galway. If he had his time back, he just wouldn't have taken him there. Ground wouldn't have suited him at all, but also the big weight. Shishkin for Katie and I, Allaho for George Gorman, Hewick for the forecast. Savills Chase will stay with the 3 mile chasers. Galopin Des Champs. This was not on the agenda. Willie Mullins was saying before the John Durkin Memorial and in the immediate aftermath of it, we'll stick to the same plan. Irish Gold Cup, Punchestown. Suddenly, we're being spoiled, Katie. We're getting a festive treat. Galopin Des Champs versus Fastorslow all over again. 6-4 is the general price for the Gold Cup winner, Fastorslow. 5-2 to continue his reign of beating him for the 3rd consecutive time. Envoi Allen's a 10-1 shot. Conflated, former winner of this race last year. Plutard, very, very good. Obviously exceptional on his day for that matter. And I Am Maximus, a 16-1 shot. Right, Savills Chase, Katie Young. Is it all about GDC? Is this where he redeems himself? Or will Fastorslow beat him again?
I think it's actually a very intriguing race. And you throw Gerri Colombe in the mix there if they decide to turn up there.
I became so confused by what's been going on. I completely forgot this is the race that Gerri Colombe is going for. Yes, of course. Insert Gerri Colombe too. Apologies. Thank you.
So you've 3 very, very exciting horses for this year in this division. Galopin Des Champs obviously sets the standards on ratings. I thought he looked a bit of a shadow of his former self on seasonal debut. His jumping just wasn't fluent. He didn't travel as much zest as he kind of shown in the past. I'd be a little bit concerned that maybe the Gold Cup has had more effect on him than previously suggested. He'd probably have to bounce back to his best to be seen at good effect here. Willie's horses do start coming alive around this time of year. So, we'll take into consideration he's had the prep run. Willie's are showing much better run of form leading up to Christmas. So, he has every option to turn the tables with Fastorslow. But I just can't get Fastorslow out of my head. I think he's been so progressive this year. Martin Brazel has done a wonderful job of nursing him through the seasons. I think that's really starting to pay off in the long run with this horse. I think he notched up his highest RPR when beating Galopin Des Champs at Punchestown in April, and he's proved that was no fluke. He backed up again, this again in John Durkan over a much probably shorter trip than ideal. You could argue the pace probably didn't suit Galopin Des Champs on the day, but he should be capable of adapting to the pace of the race if he is going to match his rating. I do think this horse is on the improve and answering every question that's been kind of thrown at him. I think he has everything. He loves the battle. He jumps well. I think the only little concern with him maybe is his form around Leopardstown probably isn't that strong. I don't think he's finished in the frame in any of his 3 starts he had there. But look, he probably wasn't at the level he was back then that he is now. And I just think he's actually a little bit of value to keep improving to what we think he is anyway. I wouldn't be surprised if he went and beat Galopin Des Champs again here.
Yeah, I agree with you. I take on board the Leopardstown point as well. It's important to mention it was a 2-mile Grade 1 chase he was running in last year behind Blue Lord, wasn't it? Won that race. So it's not like that would have been the suitable. They were basically, that was their road to the Ultima.
Yeah.
Get this horse nicely handicapped, which under the rules of racing, that's what you got to do. But you're seeing a different Fastorslow now, and he's a major player. Fastorslow for Katie. George, for you?
Gerri Colombe's really complicated things, isn't he? Before, when I was looking at Galopin Des Champs versus Fastorslow, like it knocks you over the head every time you try and find an excuse for Galopin Des Champs. You can't find one because it won on his previous 2 seasonal reappearances before this year. So you'd think he's normally ready to go first time. He's been beaten by him, like Katie said, now over 2 different trips on 2 slightly different sorts of ground. And Fastorslows only have 5 runs over fences in Ireland, plus the one in France. The Galopin Des Champs is 9, which leaves the door open that he can actually improve further still. And plus, the last time out is the first time Fastorslows won on his seasonal debut, which either means he's getting easier to get fit, or he was able to beat Galopin Des Champs when he wasn't fully wound up, which is quite frightening. Whether he can beat Gerri Colombe, I don't know. I'm really struggling with it. Something would have to go very quick in this for Gerri Colombe to outstay him.
Can I ask you about this whole thing about Gerri Colombe going to Leopardstown? Because a week ago, I started thinking, surely he's going to turn up to Leopardstown because Gordon is still doing very well in the Trainers' Championship. It's only a matter of time before he is Irish champion trainer. But maybe that's going to be this season. And if you're just going to give up the Savills and all that prize money, when Willie Mullins is then going to send a massive team to that race, that would be a bit of a mistake. So go there instead. And then they came out and said, oh no, it's the prestige of the King George. We want to be at Kempton. We just need to check the ground. But they were making a very pointed, they made a point of saying, and I think they've been great in terms of keeping everybody up to date with their plans and thoughts, and they've taken every media call, and I think that should be very much applauded. But they were saying he was doing a gallop last Friday, and that would decide things. And yet the second he did that gallop, everything went into the air completely. Like Gordon was saying at the beginning of this month, oh, it's all up in the air. But it really became confused after that. And I don't understand why. Like, why was Tremor even being mentioned in it? If you're going to go to the trouble of saying, we want to compete at Kempton because of the prestige of the King George, why on earth would you ever mention the Savills at Tremor on New Year's Day as an option?
It's concerning, isn't it? At first glance, I would have thought it's to do with the ground. You know, well, the ground's going to be good at Kempton and the ground's going to be good at Leopardstown. You're just running closer to home, like. But the fact that it's all happened after that gallop does add a bit of colour to it, doesn't it? And
yeah, just a tad.
I think a combination. Sorry, Katie. Sorry.
No, you carry on there, George. I'll drop in.
I was just say a combination of sort of those factors and the fact the only other horses Gordon has in it are Cocoa Beach and Conflated, neither of which will really be that suitable as a pacemaker. Cocoa Beach because he's not fast enough, and Conflated because he seemed to hate trying to make the running for Gerri Colombe last time out. So I would end up on Fastorslow as well. I think Gerri Colombe probably turned the tables with him come Gold Cup day. just with the extra distance. The one I did want to give a shout to was Conflated. As I say, he looked very ring rusty first time out. I would guess there's probably some combination of him not being fully wound up and not enjoying making the running, potentially making the running specifically to give Gerri Colombe something to run at, potentially. We don't know. But and despite all that, like, he made some horrible fences over the first few, some horrible shapes over the first few fences, sort of behind the bridle. And despite all that, he was beaten a length and a quarter by Envoi Allen and Gerri Colombe. So say if he comes on for that run a little bit, returns to more suitable tactics, we know this race suits him, like he won it last year. I think he could run into the places at a decent price.
Yeah,
I can see it. I can't imagine for a second Eddie, never mind Michael, Eddie would accept, yeah, just go out there and make the running for Gerri Colombe.
Yeah, exactly.
Anything to benefit Robcourt, not a hope in hell.
It just seemed very convenient that no one wanted to go on down Royal, and Gordon's other horse went out and made the running, is all I'll say. Because Gerri Colombe needed something to run at that day. He did,
but
how badly he got outpaced anyway.
Yeah, I'd imagine they just did that because they thought it was going to benefit him, not so much that they thought it was going to benefit the other.
Potentially.
Katie, were you going to say something there?
Yeah, just it kind of baffled me a little bit the way connections are going on about wanting to make a decision about the ground. Like, the ground's going to be very similar in Leopardstown, maybe even a little bit quicker, because we know how quick it dries out there. But looking back through his form, he has form on good to soft ground. He's 2 wins. I think he's won 2 grade 1s on good soft ground. I don't necessarily think it's actually that much of an issue looking at his form. So I just, like, it baffles me a little bit why connections are they just using that as an excuse? Is that why they're not going? Would just be in the back of my mind there. But I do think the track will suit him at Leopardstown a bit better. I think it's about a 3 furlong running to the finish line, and that we all know how well he stays and how much he likes to pass horses. So I do think that would be a plus for him there, and I think the track should suit him in that regard. But I just don't know where they're coming from with the ground being an issue for him, because he does hold form on good soft ground.
Yeah, I'm surprised by that too. I'm a little bit perplexed by it, actually. I'm perplexed by the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you've changed your mind about the King George. That's fine. Mm-hmm. Like, probably Kempton wouldn't really suit him. He's not a boat by any means. There is a narrative out there that Gerri Colombe is Don Poli 2.0. No, he's not. I can now concede that my beloved Don Poli was a good old steamboat. But that's not what Gerri Colombe is. He does have tactical speed. I watched back the Brown Advisory several times. Actually, I think I watched it back 5 times in a row. I still can't tell you how he got beaten, except for the fact that when he jumps the third last, he's a bit slow over that fence, and Jordan goes for him and asks him to quit, and he just doesn't. It just takes him a little bit of time to pick up. And I'm wondering if that's more to do with the undulating track at Cheltenham in that particular part of the course, that he just wasn't able to wind up there. But then he does get going, and it's all too late. And maybe the real whacker will win the King George. Maybe he's a superstar. I haven't seen it yet. I love Fastorslow, and I do have a slight concern that Galopin Des Champs is turning up here. I'm delighted he is. Don't get me wrong. We want to see these elite staying chasers. We want to see them run. But it is a deviation in plan. This is not what they were doing. And great that they're turning up. But are they turning up because they want to right a wrong and put Fastorslow in his place? Which might be. I mean, Willie Mullins is very keen to take on Marine Nationale again, for example. Barry Connell interview just below this one on the YouTube and podcast feed. You can listen to that now ahead of his chasing debut over the weekend. But is it that they're very bullish that they're going to win, or is it that they really need to see if he's still the same horse he was? And I can't tell which of the two it is. It could very well be that I'm talking myself out of 2 obvious winners in Bravemansgame and Galopin Des Champs, and I very easy to go with you, Katie, with Fastorslow, and it probably makes more sense to go with him. He seems to be the one on the ascendancy. I'm kind of torn with Gerri Colombe as well. I'm kind of am, and I was leaning more towards George there. Like this should suit him. This is also Gordon's race. This is the race that Gordon has dominated in the last few years. He took it last year with Conflated, Galvin, Delta Work, Outlander. Don Poli was Willie Mullins' last winner. Apologies, Kemboy was his last winner in 2018. So it's a race that Gordon has farmed. And I kind of wonder if that's one of the reasons why he didn't want to come here. Because they're very nice horses, but they're not Gold Cup winners. The one time Gordon did win the Gold Cup, he'd taken Don Cossack to the King George. And while he took a tumble, it didn't affect him. So I wondered, was that the real reason he wanted to go to Kempton with him? Because trainers are creatures of habit. That's led to a Cheltenham Gold Cup success. So repeat that process. And now instead you're coming to Leopardstown. Look, I believe Fastorslow is the better horse. I don't think it was a fluke at Punchestown. I don't think it was a fluke in the John Durkan Memorial. Galopin Des Champs is a wonderful horse. I love him, but he's 6-4. Fastorslow is a very fair price, and he's 5-2. So is Gerri Colombe. I'll side with Martin Brazel's horse at those prices, and we might even get slightly bigger on the day. The market is probably going to speak very heavily in Willie's favor. Willie's probably going to have won all the Grade 1 novice chases, all the Grade 1 novice hurdles. People will be playing up their winnings, and they'll get stuck into Galopin Des Champs, and you might get bigger than 3-1 Fastorslow, and I think that's too big. So I think this means for the second race, I'm also agreeing with Katie Young.
I should point out, I'm with Fastorslow as well.
The three of us are with Fastorslow.
Yeah, that's who I landed on. Sorry if I meandered around a bit, but I landed on Fastorslow.
Yeah, I find it very difficult to get away from him.
Yeah.
And look, I am trying to do the Gavin Lynch thing of I will never be as good a bettor as Gavin Lynch ever. But we can all try to not go into it with a preconceived notion. Don't be so entrenched in your views. I still can't get away from Fastorslow. I think at the prices, he's the one to be with. And I'm saying this as somebody who genuinely loves Galopin Des Champs and was all over him from the Martin Pipe onwards. But in this race, on this day, Fastorslow... The way I see this going, actually, is Fastorslow wins this, but Galopin Des Champs still wins the Gold Cup. Because I think he'll be better suited to Cheltenham. And you might see him at his real peak there. Whereas right now, right here and now, I think this is the time for Fastorslow. So I'm with the two of you.
That's similar to me, except I reckon Fastorslow wins today, Gerri Colombe wins the Gold Cup.
And there's another horse in there that I just want to touch on, who's
go on.
A little bit of a price, but I don't know if he's going. But I'd be interested to see how he runs. Would be I Am Maximus.
Let's go! Surely Mark is going to ride him this time.
God knows. Oh, I suppose Paul will be riding Galopin Des Champs. So
imagine if Paul said, "Yeah, no, I'm not going to ride GBC. I'm going to ride I Am Maximus."
But look, he'll be going left-handed. To know which it's his. To know that's his way of going. So it'd be interesting to see if he improves again for going left-handed after winning 2 races going right-handed. Like, we know he's plenty of ability, and he proved that was no fluke winning the John Durkan there at the beginning of the month. That'll put him right now. It'll be about a month apart in races, 3 weeks to 4 weeks apart. I just think he's a really fascinating runner, and I think he'd be really interesting to see how he runs in an open Grade 1 contest, to see how good he actually is. Just maybe just a horse to keep an eye on there, because wouldn't it be a sort of thing he'd do, is pop up there in a race like that at big price? I just have that.
It's currently his only entry over the Christmas period as well, which makes you think that it is the plan. Yeah,
and he's probably rated too high now to be competitive in a handicap. I think he's rated 158. So that puts him out of handicap level now, and he's going to have to step up into open Grade 1 level, because he's not a novice now after his win in the John Durkan. So I think it'd be interesting to see how he runs now.
Would you prefer the ground was a little deeper for him?
Probably. That'd be my only concern, and they might not run him because of that. But it'd be interesting to see going forward as well where they place this horse and how he fares in open company, because we do know he has plenty of ability. So
I think an old-fashioned deep ground Lexus, I'd be getting stuck into. Sure.
Going back a few years ago when Leopardstown used to come up bottomless, would have been right up his
a Tidal Bay Lexus. That would be he'd
synchronized.
Be that sort of he'd be that sort of
same colours.
Yeah,
it's just a JP special all over again, synchronized style. And look, it's blindingly obvious he needs to improve, but he was much more tractable at Fairyhouse. He wasn't doing any of the nonsense that was giving Paul Townend such a massive headache in the Irish Grand National. I don't think that's a wild selection at all. He would definitely be in an exotic bet for me.
Yeah, a little flutter there.
I can see a scenario where Fastorslow wins and I Am Maximus finish second, and everybody is just going, "What the hell has happened? The sky is falling with the 3-mile chasing division." Utter panic and pandemonium, but we'll see how it plays out. I think it's going to be really, really interesting. He's also been very well backed recently. He's into 16-1 with most firms.